Well, this is an exciting subject to be talking about today, Bruce. This is childhood programming, and we have children, and we know how our raising of ourselves were, and it does make a difference, doesn't it? Now, patterns of behavior in the family leech off onto the children, and they sort of emulate their parents if it's a good model, and sometimes if it's a bad model, they will emulate some neighbor who's got a better model because they realize this isn't working.
Well, yeah, it's very interesting because we come with a belief that, like, people say, yes, you are creating the world that you live in with your wishes and your desires, and that's like, well, people say, yeah, I wish I had a great relationship. I desire to be totally healthy. I want a job that's great and all that, and then we find that our life becomes a struggle as we try to get those things, and that's when all of a sudden we say, oh my God, I'm such a victim of things, like fate. I was dealt a bad hand. It's not in the cards for me to be successful, and poor me and all that.
Yeah, why is it happening to me?
Yes, exactly. And because when you look outside, you're like, well, I've got all these great intentions, and I'm having such a struggle to acquire these great intentions. So it's obviously that fate is against me in some sense, and then that's where we walk away as a victim of life, saying, geez, maybe next life, maybe another time I'll get another shot at it or something.
That's true.
It is, and everyone's caught up in all this stuff, and the issue about this is once you buy this character victim that it forces outside of your control your life, then we sort of give up a lot of the energy and purposeness of our life as we go. Oh, it's just not going to happen. And it's so unfortunate because it turns out that the universe is not against any of us. The universe actually will encourage and support us with all our wishes and desires. And then people will say, "Come on, Bruce. I mean, I have this illness. Do you think I wish for this illness? Is this what I desired? You're going to blame this on me?" And I go, "No, not really." But I will say that we are creators, and there's this mind-body interaction, and it's real, and there's a biochemical mechanism to explain it, so it's not magic out of the box kind of stuff, and it's our belief systems that shape our lives. And then people say, well, my life doesn't match my belief system because look at me, I had this belief system of all these wonderful things I wanted to get in my life, and look at where I'm at. So come on, your whole story about belief system is so phony. And it's like, okay, time for correction factor. It's time to look at it and say, well, how come my life is not a printout of my wishes and desires if I'm so in charge, like people say? And then I have to say, good question. Since I made it up myself, I thought it was a good question anyway. The point about it is that how can I explain my current life based on the fact that I have these great wishes and desires and I'm struggling? Okay, so here we go. And it's a really important understanding because it's the story of the day. It's the story of our evolution at this moment. It's a story that is necessary for us to understand, to re-empower ourselves so that we don't walk out in an internal vision of the victim of life. All of a sudden it's like, okay, lessons in life, I guess, part one. Okay. The mind is absolutely controlling our biology, our behavior, and our genetics. The new science of epigenetics really is the science of how an organism's perception of its environment it selects its genes and can modify its gene readout to conform to the perception. If an organism perceives the world as threatening, then the biology will create a complementary posture, structure, behavior of a world that is being threatened. If you believe that the world is truly supportive and loving and, all those beneficial things that we think about, if you really believe that, then you release into your body the chemistry that will manifest a physical experience of that. So the function of the brain is really to take our belief systems and manifest a biology based on that belief system. And then you say, yeah, but come on, that goes back to the story. I didn't wish myself to get sick. I had no belief that this is what I want. And I go, okay, we go back to the mind again, and that's where we have to talk about, as you well know, Elaine, because we've done this, talked about this before, is that there's two parts to the mind. There's the conscious and the subconscious mind. And if we make an understanding of how they operate, then we can have an understanding of how come our life is manifesting the way it is, especially if our belief systems are supposed to control our life, and how come my life doesn't look like my belief system. Then we recognize the two parts of the mind, conscious and subconscious, and we distinguish them as follows. The conscious is a small part of the brain that evolved most recently. It's just behind your forehead. It's called the no, don't look for it, and you can't see it. It's behind your eyes up there. It's a prefrontal cortex, and it's the part of your mind that is related to what we call consciousness. It's a part of your mind that has your personal identity, your source, or some people say spirit, is infused in this part of the mind. This is an interesting new evolution of the mind. This is the mind that's called the creative mind. And it's different than the previous minds, which were more reactive minds. The creative mind works in a very important process, and that is the conscious mind is not time-bound, meaning with the conscious mind, we can think into the future. I say, so Elaine, what do you think about, what's happening next Saturday? And then you can visualize next Saturday with that conscious mind. And I say, oh, remember last year in June when we did this? And then your mind could go back to June. Or if I say, listen, solve this problem, and then all of a sudden your conscious mind goes up in your head somewhere and is in a room solving a problem. So your conscious mind can flit about. And it's your conscious mind. It's creative for a simple reason. If I ask you what you're going to do next Monday, since obviously Monday's not here yet, then whatever answer you give me has to be a creative answer because it's not even here. So, the conscious mind is creative. Okay, and I go, so what about the other mind? I go, here's the other mind. It's the original brain structure that was here before consciousness evolved. It's called, in our current state, the subconscious mind. It's 1,000,000 times more powerful than the little puny little conscious mind at the front edge of your brain, because it's the rest of your brain. It's the subconscious mind. And I go, well, what about the subconscious mind? I go, the subconscious mind is time-bound. It only lives in the present moment. The subconscious mind doesn't see a future or a past. It just operates at whatever is happening at the moment. I mean, so when you go to lower organisms that don't have the conscious mind, they live at the moment. They're you don't see the lizard thinking, on Wednesday I'm going to go do this. It's like, I'm living right now. That's all I have is right now. So the subconscious mind is always in the present moment. And the relevance about that is, if you learn something 50 years ago in your subconscious mind, if you ask your subconscious mind, when is that program operating, or when did you get it? It's like right now. It's operating right now. It doesn't know that it was 50 years old. It's the current program. That's all it knows. So the subconscious mind is always in the present moment. And the subconscious mind is not creative. It has a little creativity to it, but it's primarily habitual, meaning that's the mind that has all our habits. And you say, what are your habits? Well, I say, walking is a habit. Meaning that if you had to use your conscious mind to walk like you did, you were trying to do when you were very young, is trying to integrate when you were trying to stand up, which muscles to contract as you started to teeter-totter and try to stay stable. You were learning how to adjust the muscles to stand up and to walk. So in the beginning part, it was a learning process. You didn't know how to walk, and you had to learn it. But now, once you learned it, you didn't have to go back every day and learn it again. You can get up and walk. You don't even think about it. It's like I don't say, if I want to go to the refrigerator get something yummy out, I don't say, okay, left foot, right foot. You don't even think about it. It's habit. And it goes to the extent of something like walking to even driving a car. When you first got your driver's license, you didn't know how to drive the car.
We talked about this before.
Yeah. So basically, it says that that habits can be very complex, from walking to driving a car to the job that you do to the way you behave, because that's just a habit. You push the button, you play the habit. So I say, conscious mind, no time limit. Thinking into the future, the past, very creative. Conscious mind, wishes, desires, aspirations, what you really want from life. Subconscious mind, in the present moment only. Programs, push the button, play the program. Push the button again, play the same program again. Push the button again, same program. So it's habits. And then I go, okay, here's the issue. We believe just in our hearts and our minds that we are leading our lives based on our wishes and our desires. I wish to be healthy, or I wish to have a great relationship. I wish to have a good job. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm moving forward with this intention, and this is what I want. And then we find struggles and, difficulties in acquiring or experiencing what we want. And then we go, gosh, oh man, it's just not in my fate to have these things. The cards are against me. It's the universe is not supporting me because obviously this is what I want and I don't have it. So there are forces that are against me. And then I go, okay, correction factor time. The conscious mind has those wishes and desires. We now know from neuroscience that the conscious mind only operates 5% of the time. Meaning 95% of your life is coming from the subconscious. You say, but how come? And then I go, remember that the conscious mind can move all around? Well, the moment the conscious mind is not paying attention to the exact where you are at the minute and your conscious mind is thinking about something, by definition, it's not paying attention. And when it's not paying attention, that's when the subconscious takes over the operation. But when the subconscious, when the subconscious takes it over, it does so with the habits and the programs built into it. So, and it's called subconscious for a reason, sub, below consciousness. And we talked about this before, but it's good just to say the same story again, is that the significance is that when we're using the subconscious, we're unaware of those behaviors. And so the story that I tell in my lectures is that you have a very close friend in your history. You're aware of your friend's behavior. You know your friend and your friend's behavior, and you happen to know your friend's parent. And you recognize that your friend shares some of those behaviors of their parent. And that's when you casually volunteer something like, hey, Bill, you're just like your dad, and then back away from Bill, because Bill's the first guy to go ballistic that, how can you compare me to my dad? And it's interesting because that's when the audience laughs, and the fun about them laughing is, yes, because they all experience this. And then I say, okay, now you understand the story, now the two profound points to the story, and that is, that profound point number one, Bill behaves like his dad, and everyone else can see he's doing that. The only one who doesn't see it is Bill. Hence, subconscious behavior. So he doesn't even see he's playing those behaviors. Well, the relevance, if those behaviors are good behaviors, then it doesn't make a difference if he sees them or not, because the net result of the response to those behaviors is something beneficial. But what if those behaviors that you downloaded weren't that good or supportive? Well, then it means when you're not seeing it, you are actually playing habit programs that are undermining your intentions and your desires. So it turns out 95% of our life is actually programmed by this because the conscious mind is flitting around. And then it says, well, then your life is not really a printout of your conscious mind's wishes and desires. Your life is a printout of your subconscious programs. And that's because 95% of your life is coming from them. So then people say, oh, what are those subconscious programs? And I say, it's really fun. You don't have to try to go back into your history to figure out what the programs are, because since your life is a printout of your programs, your life is a reflection of the programs. Whatever works for you in your life, whatever, it's like, oh, that was fun and easy and it came to me easy. I say, well, that's because your subconscious has programs to encourage it. And then in contrast, if I tell you, well, those things that you're struggling for, health, happiness, job opportunities, whatever, you're struggling to get there, well, that's because you have programs in your subconscious mind that do not support it. And so all of a sudden it says, well, wait, then my life is actually being controlled by myself, the good and the bad. And I'm going, yes. And actually it's all primarily 95% of it is being controlled by the invisible program called the subconscious. So basically, your life was programmed because the primary subconscious programs that shape our lives, we downloaded those programs in the first 6 years of our lives, even before our consciousness was fully evolved. So that the basic programs that we run our life by were introduced into our brain even before we were aware we were being programmed, and we didn't even see it. So, and then when we play them, we don't see it either. So it's like, that invisible thing that prevented me from getting where I wanted to go wasn't from the outside, it was from the inside. And now I know, Elaine, you're sitting there asking this question that I wanted you to ask right now, which was, well, if we create our lives, then, can't we create heaven?
Yes,
and I go,
can't we change the way we think to change our life?
Well, that's the beautiful part about it, because when we become aware of the mechanism, then you're aware of the opportunity of controlling the mechanism.
Right.
If you're not aware of the mechanism, then it's all invisible. It's like, wow, look at life is happening, and it's not what I wanted. And I go, well, now, but if you understand the mechanism, then that means you can get in and adjust and play with the mechanism. And so it's interesting, because most people out there listening right now, I'm going to make a suggestion that there was perhaps a time in your life where you actually experienced what I would say heaven on earth. And I mean that at this point of saying that at this time you were as healthy as you could ever imagine being. You were filled with energy beyond anything you could imagine having. That life was so beautiful, that every day was so fabulous, and you look forward to the next day. And I go, well, that's like heaven on earth. I would think that would be a good example of it. And then ask me the question, when was that? Go ahead, Elaine. Ask me a question. I'll answer a question.
Yeah. When was that, Bruce?
Oh, great question, Elaine. Because I say go back to a time when you fell head over heels in love with somebody, the big one, boy. That love that just took away your heart, made you breathless. That it was so much joy. Your heart ached with joy. It was so great. And I go,
like when I first met you.
Yeah, but you've been happy ever since, too. You know,
I have.
But that's because I know also you went back and changed your programming, too, so
that's
that was
true.
cool. So I say, when you fell in love and you experienced what I call a honeymoon, that was not a coincidence. It wasn't an accident that, gee, at that particular moment you were the healthiest and happiest and most energetic, and life was so beautiful. I say, the honeymoon, reflect on that for a moment. Go back, and I know there was that point where you were so in love. Unfortunately, for some people, it may have only been a day or two. And for other people, though, it may have been weeks or months, and for some people, lucky enough, years, having a honeymoon experience where every day you wake up and you're in that same full-out love and joy that you were in when you first had it. And I'm going to say, when you experience that, that was not a coincidence or accident that, gee, my life got just perfect when I fell in love at that moment. What a coincidence. I go, no. You created that. You created heaven on earth. And it's like, well, if you really understand you created it then, and you understand the mechanism, then you understand something very profound, and that is, well, if you created it then, why don't you have it as a creation for every day of your life? Why can't every day of your life be as healthy and energetic and exciting as the honeymoon? The answer is, there's no reason why it can't be. You did it before. But if you didn't understand how it happened, then there's a mystery, of course, and then there's also, it's just a coincidence that I happened to be in that great shape at that moment. I'm going, okay, let's understand how it happened. Because if we explain how it happened, then we are given an opportunity to say, well, can I create that every day? And I go, absolutely. You can have that every day of your life. And okay, so we go, okay, tell me the rules of the honeymoon.
Yeah, right.
Here they are. Okay. I said that 95% of our life is coming from the invisible habits that play automatically from the subconscious as our conscious mind is wandering all the time. I mean, just think about it. You're driving the car. You're not even thinking about driving the car. You're thinking about where you're going or what you're going to do or what happened last night or what's going to happen tomorrow. So you're even driving the car, and my analogy to the subconscious, or not analogy, my story of subconscious and the invisible nature of it is, take the car driving thing. I say you're in the car with a friend. You're having a great conversation. It's so deep into that conversation that at some point you actually look out the window and it dawns on you that you haven't really paid attention to the road.
I know.
You know that. I know that.
It happened to me yesterday. I was driving. I didn't have anybody in the car with me, but my mind started wandering, and then when I came back into my body, and I was like, who was driving the car? Well, how did I get here from there? Because I don't remember passing that street.
That's why this is a great story for a simple reason, because I could say, well, so what were you thinking about? And you could probably say, well, I was thinking about this or this, or if you had a conversation with somebody, I'd say, what did you talk about? You could go, yeah, we talked about this and this and this, and I go, great, you can tell me what you were thinking about, you can tell me what you were talking about, but then if I say, well, during that time period, as you mentioned, I said, well, tell me what happened on the road. You go, well, I didn't see it. I was in the conversation. I was deep in thought. And I go, okay, this is the instruction story. For what does it mean? It says, when your mind is wandering and your life is now operating from the habits in your subconscious mind, by definition, you can remember what your conscious mind was working on, but you didn't observe the stuff that the subconscious was doing. So when the subconscious was driving the car, you didn't observe the details of driving the car. And if I say, then what was on the road during that last 5 minutes? You go, I don't know. I was in conversation or wherever. And I go, okay, this is a story about why we don't see the subconscious's action because the conscious mind is busy. So now I say, okay, that's the problem with our life because 95% is coming invisibly from the subconscious programs, and these programs were mainly downloaded by observing our family and our community and through the education we got in the first 6 years. And so these programs are other people's belief systems that we were fed, and they became part of our habit system. And so we live when we're not paying attention, we're playing habits and lifestyles of the other people, not ourselves. We're playing the ones we downloaded. And we didn't see it, so it was invisible. So if we got a bad program from our parent and we're playing it, it could be sabotaging us. And yet, when we're playing the program, we didn't see it, so we didn't see that we were shooting ourselves in our own foot. So the failure to get to where we were going wasn't because of outside forces. It was because of the invisible subconscious behavior. Now I go, okay, go back to the honeymoon. And I go, yeah, okay, so what happened? I say, think about it this way. The day before you met that special person that came into your life, I say, okay, how long did it take you to get dressed to get out of the house? And you go, oh, geez, I got up, I got dressed in 10 minutes and I was on the way to work. And I say, even when you were getting dressed, were you focusing on that? And you go, no, I was getting dressed. I was thinking of the things I had to do during the day or what I just heard on the news or whatever it was. And I just got dressed because it was a habit. Getting dressed is behavior from the subconscious mind because you do it every day. Mm-hmm. And I go, okay, so yesterday it took you 10 minutes to get dressed to go out of the house to go to work. And then I say, you're getting dressed tonight for a date with this person that just rocks your entire life. And you were thinking, I want to be with this person. So I say, okay, now you're getting dressed to go on a date. And I say, how long does it take you to get dressed? And all of a sudden you realize a hell of a lot longer than 10 minutes. And I go, yeah, but it may take you 2 hours.
For the women, it takes much longer than it does.
And I say, well, why did it take you 2 hours to get dressed tonight and only 10 minutes to get dressed yesterday? And the answer is, tonight I'm not getting dressed by habit. Tonight I am looking into the mirror. I'm looking at myself. That's physically saying I'm being self-conscious. I'm watching myself. And therefore, when I get dressed, I am making sure that it's going to pass the review of my conscious mind. My conscious mind says it's got to be just perfect. This is the way I want it because I'm going to meet this person. Subconscious mind says, hey, get your clothes on. You got to get out of the house. And so the conscious mind doesn't even let the subconscious get into the program. The conscious mind is dealing with this. And now it's a 2-hour process because you're going to have to meet the desires and wishes and aspirations of the conscious mind. So I say, so I got dressed a hell of a lot better tonight than I did yesterday. And I go, yeah, you look really great tonight. Not as much as yesterday, but today, I wasn't so good, but now look at you. And then I go, okay, cool. Now I'm at the dinner table and I have this date across the way from me who I'm so longing for. I so want. And so what am I going to do? I'm selling myself as, look at me. This is a prize. You want this prize. So if I'm going to sell myself, then I got to make sure that I'm offering what is prize material. So I say yesterday I was talking with my friends and whatever I was thinking just came out of my head and the words came out. It's like, so you weren't thinking exactly about the words. So the way you were speaking was sort of just a habit. That's the way you speak. I go, yeah. And I go, where'd you get some of the habit? Well, obviously, a lot of it was programmed by my dad or something like that. And it's like, and I say, do you like the way your dad dealt with your mom, let's say? Was he the best and most loving? And would, he attract the woman that you see on the other side of the table? And the answer is not really. So I'm not going to let my habit mind, which I got programmed by my parents, do the conversation tonight. Tonight I've got this beautiful woman sitting across the table, and guess what? I'm not going to just say words, man. I'm thinking of the words I'm going to say. I'm actually creating poetry in my head here. You know why? Because when I say this to this woman, I want her to swoon and fall across the table like that, you know? So it's like, then I'm not going to rely on habit. I'm going to think of the words because I want them to come out the way I want them to come out to represent who I think I am. So I say, you're creating with your conscious mind and using your wishes and desires as the format or the template of what you're creating, and you're not relying on the habit mind that was programmed by other people. And so all of a sudden I say, guess what? You were living in this honeymoon state. Everything you say was beautiful. Every way you looked was beautiful. Your partner on the other side of the table is doing exactly the same thing. Now you have two beautiful people interacting with each other, and the beauty that you're generating among yourselves is spreading to the world around you. The world all of a sudden is beautiful. You're both healthy. You're both excited. Every day is like, I can't wait to get up because we're going to go do this and that and all this stuff. And we had so much energy. We made love for days without even stopping for food. And I go, wow. What a beautiful life. And everybody goes, yeah. Oh, and they say, look at this person. Look how beautiful they are. I say, oh, yeah, that person's in love. And I go, mm-hmm. And I say, what's the point? And the point is, they have the same body and the same mind they had yesterday up to this moment, which life was like this miserable thing. And now today they're glowing and they're healthy and they're vibrant and life is beautiful. And to them, they're living in heaven. I go, what a coincidence. I go, no coincidence. This was a manifestation. The conscious mind did not operate according to habit, but operated according to self-reflection. So I was looking at myself and living up to what I wanted and paying attention to the current moment and living in the current moment. And there's a beautiful word called mindfulness. That's what it also is. And it's also a practice, a Buddhist practice of being here now, being present, being in the current moment, meaning if you keep your conscious mind in the current moment, then you are actually controlling second by second how it's going to unfold and what you're going to do to keep it the way you want it, and then you're manifesting a honeymoon. Then you go, yeah, but that honeymoon period ended, and it generally abruptly. It's like,
yes.
It's like
now you're back to reality, right?
Yeah, and it's like, well, what the heck happened? Why did the honeymoon end? And then here's the fun story, because there's a conclusion as to why it ended. And the answer is this. Remember, your conscious mind can move all over the place. When it's present, when it's being in the current moment, it's in total control. So whatever its wishes and desires are, it's operating from that. But then I go, okay, so now we've been on the honeymoon a bit, and there I am pondering a thought now, because life is beginning to edge in, and, we have life. We have to go to work. We have to pay the bills. We have to fix the car. We got to do these things. So my conscious mind is now like working an itinerary in my head of these things I got to do. And this beautiful woman who is my partner comes up to me, and we've had this great communication, and I've been such a gentleman, and so I behaved so nicely, and I was the prize that she was looking for, that I was making myself into, and then all of a sudden she comes up and asks me a question, and where's my mind? Oh, it's thinking about paying the rent and doing the job and what I got to do.
Right.
And she asked me a simple question, and I turn around and I bellow out some kind of something or other, and she looks at me in total shock like, what the hell kind of behavior is that? Who are you?
Right.
And the fact is, well, let's be truthful and let's analyze this. Now, perspective analysis goes like this. Well, my conscious mind was busy thinking about something. She asked me a question. So who made the response? My habit mind. Yeah, right. But who programmed the habit? My dad.
Well, let's leave it there right now, Bruce, because we need to take a quick break. And so, Bruce, okay, so we've got this situation where our mind is wandering off and we're making all the decisions, but...
And we're still living in the honeymoon up to this moment.
Right, yep, and that honeymoon, well, yeah, and if it's not a good honeymoon, then we're off to a bad start, right?
That was a bad start. That wasn't the real honeymoon then. The real honeymoon was the one where for that least that period of time, and as I said, it's unfortunate because I said some honeymoons are very short, and some of them have great opportunities to last longer, but when does it end? And I said, well, why was it there? And the first thing, it was there because I was using my conscious creative mind to shape my life and not relying on the habits. And then I said, well, okay, so we've had this period of time, but then life starts to come back in. My conscious mind starts to wander. By definition, that's like being in the car and talking to somebody, or as you said, there was nobody else in there. It just was wandering and thinking about things. And that meant at that moment when you were driving the car, you were doing it with a subconscious behavior. And I go, yes, at that moment, if you're thinking about something like fixing your own car or going to the job or doing something, and your partner comes up and asks you a question, and then I say, when you make a response, are you making it with your conscious mind or your subconscious mind? The answer is, of course, you're making it with a subconscious mind, because that's the one that's being in the present moment, while the conscious mind is off on a time travel thinking about something. And then I say, well, then when you use your subconscious mind to make a response to your partner, is that your behavior? And I go, no, the subconscious was programmed by observing your parents primarily. So, in fact, when you're not paying attention, all of a sudden your behavior turns into perhaps, let's say, your father or your mother's behavior. And I go, well, that behavior wasn't in the relationship up to this moment, because when you were being present, you never used that programmed behavior. Now, all of a sudden, your partner comes up, asks you a question, you turn around, and your behavior is totally different. And the answer is, yeah, it's totally different, because it's not yours. It was programmed by your parents. So there's this big shock on your partner's face, looking at you like, what kind of behavior is that? Because they've never seen it up to this moment. That was because the honeymoon, you weren't using that. And then here comes where the problem steps in, because you just accuse this person, your partner, of not being themselves. You say, what kind of behavior is that? Like they're not who they are. And they turn around. Now, remember this. Remember that whole story. The subconscious behavior is invisible. So if I'm the one that just said something, and my partner looks at me and says, what kind of behavior is that? And I'm now looking like, what are you talking about? I'm saying that because I didn't see the behavior I just did, but then, of course, I'm me. So if I'm me, what other behavior would I have other than my behavior? That's what I'm thinking. So, but the reality was, my behavior is the conscious mind, and I don't see the subconscious mind, so I didn't even see I did that. Well, this is where the difficulties and where the honeymoon ends. And the honeymoon ends for a very simple reason. The honeymoon was created on two conscious minds engaging with each other and being self-reflected of themselves, so they were monitoring their life and their relationship and doing it according to wishes and desires. Mm-hmm. The honeymoon ends when the subconscious mind, which was kept out of the picture up until now, shows up. But the subconscious mind is really not even you. It's your parents or something. So why does the honeymoon end? Because it started with two conscious minds, and it ends when there are four minds involved. The two conscious mind plus the two uninvited guests called the subconscious mind. And all of a sudden it's
complicated.
Like, that's when it's like when the woman or the guy looks at their partner and goes, who is this person? I don't know that. I've never seen this behavior, and now it shows up. And then all of a sudden now the adjustment of the honeymoon takes on, now you have to learn to accommodate the person's subconscious beliefs, because they're going to be more prominent in the relationship, and they weren't never there. So what started out as a honeymoon now is compromised, because the uninvited guests obviously bring in behaviors that were not intended by either of the partners in the relationship.
Right. So, well, Bruce, we have lots of memories from our childhood that manifest oftentimes, come back and surprise us as adults, and this is kind of what you're talking about. But, some families were not happy. Some had a lot of violence going on, or they were getting spankings all the time, or they were being restricted.
Or illnesses, Elaine. Let me just bring this in, because I want people to just think about this point. It's been recognized that when children are adopted into families that have cancer running in them, that the adopted child can get the same cancer with the same propensity as any of the natural siblings. Very important point. What does it mean? The cancer wasn't genetic. It was a behavioral unconscious programming that precipitates it, so that a child with totally different genetics comes in the family, learns the behavior, and ends up with the cancer. And so it's not just the abusive things that come out vocally, but it's behavioral programs that are not supportive are also learned, and these behavioral programs disrupt the physiology and cause the illnesses. So that is handed down just as much as a behavioral program of how someone talks to somebody else, for example.
So it's really important for us to hang out with people who are uplifting and honor you as a beautiful person, and yet you are filled with those kinds of thoughts, and then that kind of reinforces it. I presume we have the ability, obviously, to change all of that behavior.
Absolutely. And your point about hanging out with people, well, it works, and this is a very critical point. It works when both you and the people you hang out with are aware of the unconscious programmings that show their ugly head every now and then. Because if both partners are aware that this is programming and not you, that's actually saying it, you, the conscious mind that brought them together in the first place. If both partners in a relationship are aware, like, oh, that invisible behavior that you just played that you didn't see, all of a sudden, that changes it. Because if I'm not aware of this, that's why I said the honeymoon ends, because the arguments start right away. It's like, well, you said this, or it's like, what do you mean I did that? And then it's like, well, then it's all over.
Battle takes place.
But if both people are aware of this, then guess what? Rather than precipitating an argument, it precipitates an opportunity to change the programming when it's done with a compassionate consciousness that says, oh, I know you didn't really mean to say that. That's not who you really are. That's a trait passed down by your parents. Then we have a discussion about it rather than an argument. And then with a discussion, that can lead to changing the program, but an argument actually leads to keeping everything exactly in place as it was.
Okay, so Bruce, and now for people who are living alone, say, for instance, or their partner is traveling a great deal and they're not together all the time, but can't we use the mirror as our talking face? And because I did that myself, and I changed my life because of that, so I know that it works, but
it does and it doesn't, and it doesn't is a very tricky thing, because then you just say, okay, let's just talk to ourselves. And I go, okay, it does it if you do it as a habitual process, not a random event like, oh, at this moment I want to talk to myself.
No. Well, when I did it, of course, it was a very serious moment in my life, but I don't think using it on a casual basis is going to be the answer at all.
Yeah, that's a big thing, because it's more than just talking to yourself, because this is what I try to get people to understand, because like me, I could give myself an example here. I love sugar things, man. That's a great drug, sugar things, donuts and stuff like that. And I know it's totally really not good for me, and so my conscious mind with the good for me attitude is trying to tell myself, okay, listen, don't eat that junk. That's really bad. And I love it because my partner, Margaret, calls donuts circles of death. And so I say, okay, don't eat that stuff. And I give myself a good talking to. And then 10 minutes later, I'm standing there with a Krispy Kreme donut in my hand. It's like looking at myself like, oh, you eating this? And then I get mad at myself. And I start getting angry with myself, going, don't eat that, you stupid idiot. I just told you not to eat that. And you eat the donut because now you're frustrated anyway. And the whole reality comes down to is when you're talking to yourself, and this is the joke part at some level, who are you talking to? Well, you say, okay, I'm talking to my subconscious. And I go, okay, well, here's the basic problem. There's an entity in the conscious. That's you. That's your spirit. That's your personal identity. And I say, well, what about the subconscious? I go, no, the subconscious is more like a tape recorder. There's nobody in there. It records a behavior, and then you push the play button, and it plays the behavior back again. And I go, so you want to change the subconscious mind? And I say, well, you want to change it by talking to yourself? I say, first do this. Go find a tape player with a tape in there with a program. Push the play button, and as the program is playing, I want you to talk to the tape player and suggest that it change the program. Yeah, right.
That's a good example. I like that.
And the reality is, well, you're going to get blue in the face, and it's still not going to change. I go, okay, this is first number one. Your subconscious doesn't have anybody in it. It learns by habit. It learns by emotion and behavior. So when I bring the emotion factor in, it goes like this. Things that have little emotionality to them take more repetition to learn. Things that are highly charged emotionally, you learn faster. So emotion is like a speed control on learning. You put a lot of emotion into something, you can learn it a lot faster.
Right, it reinforces it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it certainly does. So if you want to change a program, talking to yourself is not generally the best way of doing it, only because that's like talking to the tape player. You really want to interact with your subconscious in the way the subconscious learns. And there's two primary ways it learns. One is through habit, and another is through a process equivalent to like super learning, or hypnosis is like a super learning. It's an ability that bypasses consciousness so that the program can be downloaded without the interference of consciousness. This is essentially how the mind was operating for 6 years of your life, because consciousness wasn't interfering, so whatever you were observing was going straight into subconscious. So there are ways of doing that. There are processes. I refer to them as, okay, pushing the record button on that tape player, because if you don't push the record button, you just talk to it. That's not going to do anything. But if you know the process, the act of pushing the record button, then when you talk to it, it's now in a recording mode. Now you can change it. But if you just want to talk to yourself and try and change it, that doesn't work. And here, because the two minds learn differently, conscious mind being the creative mind can learn in a creative fashion. The subconscious mind being a habit mind can learn by repetition of a pattern or by getting to a state of the mind where it's in a record mode, like hypnosis, and those two ways you can get to it. And so, and this is very frustrating if you don't know that, for here's a simple reason. You say, oh, well, if my conscious mind becomes aware of something, my subconscious mind will obviously follow suit and know it. And I say, okay, that's the issue why people go to a psychologist or psychiatrist. They review their life story and find out, well, their mom did that, their dad did that, their best friend did this, and then you go through this whole litany of your life, and you empty tissue box after tissue box, and you cry, and oh, woe with me. And you get to the end of this, you now have in your conscious mind a complete itinerary of your history, and you could go back and go, wow, no wonder my life's screwed up. And then I go, okay, now you're aware of this. Is your life any less screwed up? And the answer is no, it's exactly screwed up as it was before, but I have a conscious awareness of it. So it says, oh, your conscious mind learned, but your subconscious mind's still playing the same programs. I go, yep, because the conscious mind can learn, but it doesn't change the subconscious mind. It's the same thing like reading self-help books. Everybody that reads these books, and they go, well, you read that book, and does it make sense? Yeah. You could give me a test on the contents of that self-help book, and I will get 100. And I go, yeah, because your conscious mind read the book and understood the principles and learned the meaning of it. And I go, but by reading the book, did that change the subconscious mind? I go, nope, subconscious mind doesn't learn from that. So the frustration is so terrible because people make all these conscious efforts and then find, but I make all these conscious efforts. I go to classes, I read the books, I review my life, and I still have the same thing. And I say, that's because conscious mind learns differently, but you have to apply one of the habits or hypnosis or super learning aspects to reprogram the subconscious mind. Yeah. And if you don't do that, it's just your conscious mind is running in place and not making any progress at all.
Well, I think when we're going around our daily life, we're not really thinking about which mind is in control. You know, this takes some purposeful meditation or thinking about it in order to be able to see where we are. And we can do this, and we do it only when things don't, well, maybe they blow up in your face, and you have to stop at that point and rethink. But I don't know, Bruce, in our daily life whether people are going to be paying that much attention. But I do think what you're saying is that it takes something where we stop and say, I don't like the way my life is going. Gee, I'm sorry, I said that to that person. You know, it takes almost a shock, it seems to me, to bring us to that place where we're willing to do the deep work.
Well, absolutely, because as you mentioned, most people don't don't think about this on a day-to-day basis because the
No.
answer is they don't see it. If you
No.
don't see it, if you had your a video camera focusing on you during the whole day and recorded that whole day experiences and then sat down and played that videotape, you would be shocked because you think, oh my God, that was stupid behavior and all that. And then you have to say, yeah, but when you were doing that behavior, you didn't see it, so you weren't judging yourself. You weren't even observing yourself. So it's invisible, and that's why until we stop and own that it's invisible, it's the first time that we have to stop and say, well, if it's invisible, then I must do some kind of other process to see what I'm doing, or I have to change it. And it's fun because you might have to say, well, geez, I don't know what those programs are in my subconscious mind. And then I go, well, here's the fun part. And the fun part is if 95% of your life is being controlled by your subconscious mind, then here's a simple truth. Your experiences and what you have going on in your life is a printout of your subconscious programs. And what that means is simply this. The things that work for you because the programs in the subconscious mind support those things. But the things that you struggle with, the things you have a hardship over, the things that aren't working right, those are also programs in your subconscious mind, and it's not the outside forces. They're limiting beliefs that are invisible when you play them that prevent you from getting to where your desires and wishes want to go. So it basically is fun. It says, you don't have to go and review a life history to find out what's in your program. You are the program. You see it. So it makes it easier if you want to make those efforts and those intentions to change it because you know what you need to change. It's right in front of your face.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think this is a very complex topic, and I'm hoping that my audience will take this under advisement, and at least I think we could at least do some meditation on this to consciously aware of what we're doing here. But I don't know, Bruce. This is really a complex behavior challenge, really, for us to consciously think about the subconscious mind.
Well, Elaine, the challenge up to this moment, and it's really simple though. The challenge up to this moment is, if you are not aware that 95% of your life is operating from the subconscious, invisible to you, if you're not aware of that, that's where the problem comes from, because if you're not aware of it, then you're saying, my God, I wanted to have this, health or success, and I can't figure out why it's not happening. That's where the challenge comes from, because then you're thinking, well, it's not me, it's outside of me, and this is where the whole thing says, no, first understanding is we have to look inwards and recognize the first problem is not outside of us. The first problem is us. And when we own that, that is the first step. If you don't own that, then you can't go on to the next step. So if you still think you're just a victim of outside things, you'll never really become self-empowered. And so, yes, it's an issue that we have to deal with, but the first step of dealing with it is to acknowledge it. If you don't acknowledge that and you still think that your problems and failures and struggles are related to outside forces, then you are acknowledging I am a victim, because you're saying that. It's like, I didn't do it, other people did this. And when you're a victim, that mentality says then you cannot be the master. And so the belief of victimization is the first problem. And because if I own I'm a victim, and that's my belief system, and belief controls my biology, and my belief is I'm a victim, then guess what? My biology will be a victim.
Right.
I'm the victim. And so the first step is the most major step, is owning how it works. Owning also, go back and just stop for a moment and try to reflect on a point in your life where you were so fabulously in love, no matter how short it was. And that's unfortunate for most people, because that's the issue, is to recognize, but how was life when you were in that moment? Because what I really want people to own for a minute is, that was not an accident. That was a creation. If you own that as a real truth, then you own the simple understanding is that, but I could get back to that. And I go, yes. And that's the first power step.
Right.
It says, I can do that. I did do that.
Right.
So I want to do more of it. And it's like, okay, well, then you got to own the story.
Well, right off is I'm thinking about how our life is so filled with electronics now on the computer, and we get very frustrated with what's going on there. And I don't know, does that fit into all this, Miles? Because, sometimes, I've had a couple of days like that where I couldn't get on the Internet, and I didn't know what it was that was causing the problem, and it took a couple of days for that to get straightened out. But, the frustration that we get, is this related to some other behavior that we have going on in our life that this is or is it something unique in that regard?
No, it's just our frustrations are when we can't perceive of how we get out of the mess that we're in.
Yeah, the loss of control.
And basically then owning victim. If I'm a victim, I'm frustrated. Why? Because it says, oh man, my forward motion is limited by other people or things, and then all of a sudden I'm under their control, and I'm not doing what I want to do. And of course, that's the most frustrating thought in the entire world, because then you feel like I really want to do something, but I'm disempowered. And the fact is, it still goes back to us personally. And when we own that is the first big step that says, but I can change it. And if we start to do that and we start to take it into our hands, then we can transition from victim to master. And this people do this all the time. And it's not an unknown entity. One of the interesting books that's out there is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it's an interesting.
For a long time.
It's a very important story because it's basically an emphasis on what I'm talking about. You grow up in a rich family. You were programmed with the beliefs that encourage you to have money, because that's what rich people, they have money because they have a belief system that says I can have money. You grow up in a poor family, and you grow up with all the reasons why you can't have the money. And that's what they're talking about. You grow up in a poor family, you tend to be poor the rest of your life. You grow up in a rich family, you tend to be rich the rest of your life. And it's like, was that genetics? No, it's programming. And so why can't a person who's coming from a poor family be rich? And the thing is, they can be. But they can't. They have to change their behavior, model it differently, rewrite it differently than the program that was offered by the family. And you brought up very early when we brought up a very important point. There are people that come from the worst environments ever. The slums and degradation, bottom of the line, and then all of a sudden these people rise up to the highest of heights. You know, how'd that happen? And as you said, basically it's like they didn't use their own community or family as their reference point. They chose a different family or a different community or a different belief, and then use that as their some people get into religion. I got into Jesus, and all of a sudden, well, yeah, Jesus gave a hell of a lot better story than my family gave me, and so if you bought into that belief, then you would have a better program than the dysfunctional one that was running in your own family. So we call these people resilient wonders, people who come from the worst backgrounds and yet attain the highest of the